Welcome back to the Hoops Lounge. We're the show with less roster problems than Team USA. My name is Marc Griffin, a.k.a. Montreal Mark, and I'm joined by my partners in crime, Phil Boileau, Sporting Phil, and Mota Elb, the International Man of Mystery. Today we're going to be discussing Paul George's gruesome injury the other night in the USA basketball scrimmage and the greater consequences of should NBA players be playing international basketball. Now, Mota, I am going to go to you first on this. I think by now everyone has seen the video, or as I told Phil, don't watch the video of his leg basically snapping in half.
Yeah, don't watch the videos. If you like horror movies, okay, you can watch them. But if you don't, just don't watch it. It's really gruesome. You can actually feel the pain.
No, all you have to do is look at Derrick Rose reacting to that on the court. Mota, how consequential is this to the growth of global basketball and the USA program as a whole?
I mean, it's going to be very difficult because the NBA teams actually already are putting a lot of pressure on players not to play during the off season and doing all of that. But it's at the same time also this year FIBA changed their regulations, so they want to have more players even to play during the season in international games for them to qualify for the World Cup, for the Basketball World Cup, and for the Olympics. So it's going to be, I think, in the next couple of years, I think it's going to be a battle between FIBA and the NBA to see what the middle ground between playing off season and not playing. But like what we tweeted today with Dr. Boris, he said that these guys need to rest. It's not they need to figure out how to manage the time in between for them to rest a bit, because 82 games is way too much, plus the playoffs.
Now, Phil, speaking of the battle, the one person who's kind of headed this movement, he's actually done it for quite a few years now, is Mark Cuban, the owner of Dallas Mavs. And, he has such a heavy investment in Dirk Nowitzki, who basically has spent all of his summers playing and leading, putting the Team Germany on his shoulders. And Mark Cuban looks at the financial aspect of it, just the huge risk he and other owners are putting on their franchises, letting their franchise players play. How do you look at this from the business perspective?
From the business perspective, I think this is terrible. I'm going to see, or looking to see, possibly in contracts stipulating you cannot play in the Worlds going forward, or things like this. You're paying a lot of money to these guys, and I know they want to represent their countries, but it's a business. You're investing in them as much as they're investing in you. And to your point, Mota, before, you're saying how, they play a lot of games. These guys can play pickup games either way. I think this is the one counterpoint, is that I'm not as worried that it's the Worlds. It's more like, if they play a bunch of pickup games, like his injury was not something that would not necessarily have come out of a 3-on-3 scrimmage. Yeah. Right? So in that regard, I understand what you're saying. I think that should be some other stipulations we'll cover later in terms of who makes it to these Worlds and Olympics and such and why. But in terms of a business financial standpoint, I think this is where teams are going to start losing money. I mean, the Indiana Pacers are now crippled by this for this upcoming season. Sure, they might get a good draft pick out of it, but they've just lost their two best offensive players in one off season. This is something they won't be able to recover from, and this is also hoping that Paul George recovers from this in general, which you never know.
Yeah, and also I completely agree with you, Phil. But there's a counter argument to this. If you look at some of the players that came out of these off seasons and they came out better, like Tony Parker, for instance, or Nicholas Batum, or the Dragic, and even Dirk Nowitzki came out of some international playing a lot better. Even Pau Gasol too. Marc Griffin, like you can name, and most of them are European, maybe because they used to play, or maybe there's some way to play better. And
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying perhaps you could have an age cap, saying once you're 25 you can't play anymore. So you can have those early developmental years. Russell Westbrook was another you didn't mention that came back, had a very strong after his Worlds or Olympics. So I do see the point, but as people age, they do become more prone to injury. So I think this affects more players 25 plus than under 25.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, one idea that Mark Cuban actually threw out was having the NBA form its own quote-unquote World Cup with its own rules, own legislations, probably an age cap. What do you think of something like this?
That is just outrageous. Mark Cuban comes out. He's a billionaire because of his great mind, but he's not. Sometimes he just comes out with the most ridiculous ideas in the world. I mean, FIBA is the governing body for basketball, and the NBA deciding to do their own basketball World Cup can also lead to, okay, why not Nike take all their players and decide to make their own league? That would be the same thing. So it's just, to me, it's just. You have to have certain regulations. And what difference would it make? The guys will get injured regardless.
Phil, I'm going to read a quote from Larry Bird, which I think is one of the most fascinating things in this whole, because he's probably one of the people most deeply affected by this injury. He said, "We will still support USA basketball and believe in the NBA's goals of exposing our game, our teams, and players worldwide. This is an extremely unfortunate injury that occurred on a highly visible stage, but could have also occurred anytime, anywhere." Do we have to reach a point where we're stopping NBA players from playing pickup basketball, from flying in planes, from doing the things they normally do during the off season?
Well, I mean, we might start with extracurricular bowling if you're a 7-foot center. But apart from that, I don't think there's much you can do. As he outlined there, and as I outlined before, injuries like this can just happen. And to stifle a basketball player who's, let's be frank, the best basketball players love the game. They're not just forcing their way through it. And people who love the game go to Rucker. They go to these different events, and they're going to play. And because it's a counter-argument, yes, there's less opportunities to get hurt if he doesn't go to such events, but these are also opportunities, like Mota's pointed out, where they improve. The different scenarios, the different types of frameworks of the game. These are places where NBA players can cut their teeth. So I think while it's unfortunate, you don't see it enough that it's that necessarily bad. I mean, one player, right, it sucks, it's brutal, it's gruesome, and it really hurts the Pacers. But at the end of the day, it's not like there's one player from every team every year that's going out like this. If this was professional football or rugby, where there's much higher likelihood of serious injury, I would agree with you. But I think in this case, apart from an age limit, you have to kind of play status quo, because as Mota pointed out, all of this is just beneficial to the progression and learning curve of those players.
And when we look at it, like we look at all the people that are involved in the basketball organization, but what about the coaching staff and the preparation staff? Most of the injuries, those are sometimes lack of preparation, lack of physical preparation. I mean, you look at Steve Nash; he played in all international competitions. You look at Tony Parker; he played in all international competitions. Tim Duncan played for a few seasons on international competitions, and these guys play until every year by year, until the finals, to the Western Finals, and they play a lot of minutes and a lot of games, and they play in the off season, but they're still healthy. There must be something that they're doing that is very different completely from the guys that are getting injured every year in and year out. And that's something that needs to be looked at, and maybe needs to also be set as standard for all the players for them to prevent the injuries.
All those the counter argument.
Phil, sorry. One thing we discussed with Dwight Walton, who's a good friend of Steve Nash, he said, it's difficult to say this, but Steve Nash's career skyrocketed once he stopped playing international basketball. What he started doing, and Mota alluded to this, he started cross-training, doing sports like tennis and as well as soccer during the summer, and staying away from basketball pretty much completely, besides working on a shot. Now, Tim Duncan in recent years has actually been doing a pretty similar thing. He's been going to swimming and boxing as a mode of staying away from basketball, changing his body, keeping lean during the summertime, and just having that less wear and tear. As Mota said, do you think this is really going to become a mainstream in what's happening in the NBA?
Absolutely. I mean, cross-sport training is becoming very popular. Looking at how teams like the Montreal Canadiens will warm up, they'll use a football and toss it around just to diversify the muscle groups they're using. Also, training techniques such as Duncan used, such as swimming, are very low impact on your joints. And as a player ages, those become more and more strenuous. So those are good ideas. And soccer is notoriously good for basketball players because it improves your footwork. So these are skills that every player wants to improve, and if there's a fun way outside of basketball to do it, And I think most of these guys, if you look at how they've come up through the system, most of them were multi-sport athletes. So jumping from one to another, I mean, most of them had to choose at one point one career to go with. I mean, LeBron James, let's not forget, was a football player. So was Allen Iverson. And these guys had to choose one path, but it doesn't mean they don't enjoy the other ones. And the off season really, as long as you're working on your basics in one way of another or another, I mean, all these sports have attributes such as hand speed, foot speed, that can add to your game. So I think it's a great way to go, although I don't necessarily feel it's bad to just stay traditional. I just think these guys thinking outside the box are only adding to the longevity of their careers.
Mota, so to look at the grand perspective on things, USA dominated international Olympic competition in basketball for decades and decades and decades. And then in 1988, a college team led by David Robinson, Dan Marley, and a few others lost. They got the bronze medal, quote-unquote lost, got the bronze medal of the Olympics. And that led to David Stern allowing the 1992 Dream Team to occur. It's been 22 years of professional dominance by NBA players without a major injury. John Stockton had a minor injury. There was one or two other minor injuries, and now this with Paul George. Yeah. Do you think this is going to be that catalyst that changes everything, and that they're going to go back to amateurs playing in the Olympics?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's a huge business. It's the multi-billion-dollar business for them. It's the NBA grew because of the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. It had a huge impact on players, on marketing, on sponsorship, on everything. I mean, guys like Pau Gasol came out of the 1992 Olympics because he saw the Dream Team right in front of him. So that I don't think that they will go that far into this, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a small battle between FIBA and the NBA about finding a middle ground between, okay, who's allowed to play, at what time is it allowed to play, how many minutes, when exactly. Maybe they're going to be more lenient with NBA players than European players, something like that, because losing Paul George with his growth in the past 4 years and his fan base and everything, I think it's going to it doesn't hurt necessarily the NBA, but it's hurting the team. So it's definitely not a good sign for them to lose someone like this.
One great story to look at is Luol Deng, who he came from a war-torn country in Africa, and his family arrived in London, England, and were taken in and were given a new opportunity in life. And then there was a lot of controversy when he wanted to play for Team England in the London Olympics, and Chicago was saying no, no, no. Sometimes basketball is bigger than life. Life is bigger than basketball. Phil, I mean, is there any scenario where you could absolutely say the NBA is going to stop player X from playing for his country?
As I said, I think I can easily see them implementing an age rule. I've heard this 25 age cap being bantered around a few times. I don't think it'll ever come to the point, as Mota said, because the NBA is trying to grow its international game, its international appeal. So having its homegrown stars go overseas and be able to be seen by these people, so they're not just seeing them on TV, is only adding to the brand. And as everyone knows, Stern was all about the brand, and hopefully passed some of that heritage on to Mr. Silver. But I think we're going to see some players have it, like, towards the end of their careers being kind of dissuaded about it. And I don't know, because it's tough to say keep everyone out, because if you allow them to participate for a few years, at least they know that's what it is. I mean, look, most Olympic athletes, by the time they're 25, are done anyways. So just keep it in the spirit of that. And then after that, you're a professional. And as a professional, you can, like, for players who come out of college or 1 year of college who didn't really have a year to, didn't really have that time to progress, for those first couple of years, like, I think this is going to be fantastic for a guy like Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, and guys like that this year. But after they've reached that point and they're now mature in their game, there's no longer the need for the maturation in their game. And so it's more for the new guys. So I think not only would an age cap help protect owners' investments in these players into their first and second big contracts, but it would allow younger players to not have their spots being held hostage by guys like LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony working into their 30s, and allow more talent to infuse into the NBA with international feel and play experience.
Definitely, yeah. And regardless, I mean, taking away the business side of things, I mean, you're playing for your country, and it's one of the most, in my opinion, I think it should be one of the most rewarding things for you to be able to, if you play the Olympics, because there's so much history to it. So there's too many factors for you to get in, for you to refuse, unless you're Joakim Noah or Blake Griffin, but let's not talk about these. But it should be more of an honor, like with Michael Jordan when he accepted, and Magic Johnson when he accepted to play for the Dream Team. So it's the same thing. It's not only necessarily about business. It is you take a risk of you getting injured, but you're also creating that legacy for you worldwide and within your country.
Mota stole the final question I was going to ask him, which is great. But Phil, I will throw another final question to you. What would it be like to have Paul George come back strong next year and possibly get the gold for Team USA?
That would be enormous. I think it would be an interesting play. I think he would have, without a doubt, have made this cut as one of the most productive two-way forwards in the game who can play the 2, 3, and 4 in international basketball. I think it would be a great motivating factor, because if you're not having the big names, the likes of Kobe, Melo, and LeBron, you're looking for some big-name leadership. And while you have your Roses and Kyrie Irvings, I think Paul George is seen as one of those guys. You know, before his downswing at the end of last year, he was seen as a guy who was, you know, making his way up to the LeBron plateau. Maybe not at that level, but I think it would be a huge motivating factor. And I think he's the type of player exactly suited for international ball. He can shoot the 3 at the NBA level, which means he can do it in the international level. He's athletic, can play both sides of the ball. It'd be a huge emotional tearjerker. I just don't think that the Indiana Pacers would allow that. I think there's no way he plays, even if he's healthy. I think they're not going to risk losing another season of him. It's
a very interesting dilemma, and it's going to be ongoing for years to come. I want to thank you guys both for being on. Coming up this week, check out HoopsLounge.com. I have a new piece. I'm doing some collaborations with the wonderful Dwayne Watson in Toronto. He's launching a new site, so check out some info there from me. Mota, do you have anything coming up this week?
Yeah, just stay up to date with my Twitter feed. I have some interesting surprises for you this week.
International.
And Phil, off the wire with the Lakers.
Yeah, so this last week I covered a fictitious trade that I've heard bantered around the NBA in terms of Kobe to the Knicks. Something I covered with Mike Grumberg here from HoopsLounge. Doesn't make his face appearance on camera too often, so check that one out. So basically it's going to come up to what's a hot topic coming up this week. Obviously, if any Kevin Love idea drops, but we're probably going to have to wait till late August for that, once the Wiggins saga goes through. But this is going to be all the breaking news, so we're going to be covering a little bit more of the Team USA, and once those final cuts are all made, obviously it's a sore subject right now, no pun intended, but a lot more of that going forward, and yeah, it's just the off season, so getting you guys and your information more up to date on what teams you're going to be looking forward to watching next coming season.
And the silver lining here with international play in Team USA is look at how Derrick Rose is using this opportunity to grow. Look at that. Look at the silver lining. So I want to thank you guys for being on the air. And Phil, I'll throw it back to you to wrap up.
Exactly, and the Chicago Bulls are going to be another topic all to themselves, who have now vaulted over the Indiana Pacers. So anyways, thanks for joining us again. Visit us on HoopsLounge.com, the contributors section at the top, so where you can contact myself, Mark, and Mr. Mota. We're always active on Twitter, Facebook, and all the rest, so please join the conversation and let us know anything you'd like to see. And of course, our YouTube/TheHoopsLounge. Remember to like, share, and all the rest, so we know what you guys want to see, and we keep bringing it to you. And we'll catch you next time on the Lounge.